So welcome to the node.js node add-on API team meeting for 17th of May 2024. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issues that are in the milestone 11. So let me just pull that up and I will then share issues milestones. Okay, I am sharing. And if anybody else joins, let me know so that I can add them. Just once I share, there we go. Okay. So we usually start out, anything new people would like to share in terms of things that have happened or anything like that, that we should let other people know. Okay, if not, let's move on to the things that were tagged. I think Warren print when Epic Experimental is used in builds. I don't know that there's anything new to sort of discuss on that this week.
I just thought about a bit, like maybe not warning, but we can just simply do some kind of just informational kind of just or kind of maybe okay. We can do warning, right? Because some people may have settings that if you have a warning, it may be error, right? But I wonder if we can use some kind of just print a message.
Right. Yeah, I think
Should be. I guess there should be some kind of pragma that.
Yeah, that couldn't necessarily. I wasn't necessarily like when I didn't necessarily think we'd translate this into a warning, like a C++ warning, right? So I think exactly what you said. We could provide just some sort of information, which is not necessarily a compile warning, but some way that people could notice, right?
Right. Maybe like put a lot of kind of pseudographics. You experimental.
Yeah, like if I think even just printing something out that would show in the output, right? Like if there's just an informational thing that could be an if, like if this is defined, print out this. That would be I think that would be a good first step anyway.
Okay. So it's not necessarily warning. If it's not warning, it's just kind of being able to print message. We should be able. I guess we should be able to do something with this.
Yeah, I think just that would be it's not that it compile, yeah, exactly. Just print out a message. So if you're happening to be looking at your output, a reminder that like, hey, you've compiled with experimental, and that means that you could run into these challenges. That would be good.
Yeah, people can look through their log file. For example, somebody reports, "Oh, I have this issue," blah blah. We can say like, "Could you have a look at your log file? Do you see this
Right.
kind of warning there?" I mean, message which warns you that you're using
Yep.
experiment. People say yes, so I guess I'll just remove experimental, and it should not be good, right? Like, kind of. Okay. I can have a look at what exact syntax we can use to print it.
Okay.
I just
Sounds
want to make
good.
sure that we do it cross compilers.
Yep. Okay. Sounds great.
I think we may need some if defs. I'm just looking at GCC and they have like hash pragma message, la la la. So, but that's
Okay.
GCC. So we'll have to have like if def this, if def that. But I think we
Okay.
can
Because you
cover a
think
lot
like
of
that same
compilers.
pragma doesn't apply to other compilers.
Yeah, we'll just have to go and see. But we already have like compiler specific switches, so this would be just another one.
Okay. Sounds good. Help with Node SQLite. I don't know anything.
Oh, I haven't checked
updates on
that.
your
I can take a
PR?
look at the PR. Status quo, unfortunately.
Okay. Drive towards full coverage.
No, I just put a comment in of what we discussed of the next from last meeting, but no progress.
Okay, that's good. Stale issues. I don't think there's any new stale issues to discuss. Nothing really there. Haven't done anything on debug testing. So yeah, let's flip over to the issues in the repo.
Mhm.
Sorry, what was that?
Can we go to the Node API headers repo first?
Sure.
Just so that we can get this one out the way. I think
Yep.
it if we go down a rabbit hole later in the meeting.
Sure, yeah, okay. Yeah.
This will be, yep. So I created a new PR. This CI adds support for automated releases. This needs a environmental secret, the NPM token, following the suggestions based off of that link. And also the publish step to do the actual publishing is not automated based off of a package version change. I have the code in there, but it's just commented out. I personally wanted to like put that up for discussion, if we wanted it to be manual where, you just go to GitHub Actions and you say run workflow and then it's complete, or do you want it to automatically do that whenever there's a package version change? I felt like I wanted there to be a little bit more control as to when the package is actually published. So this would be under publish release right here.
Right.
Uncomment below to enable. There is a check that, the version has not already been published,
Right.
but I don't know. I just wanted to throw it out for discussion.
I mean, and it could be like an incremental approach where it starts out requiring somebody to run it and look at, and then if we do that for 6 months or some amount of time, and it's like, well, it's never been an issue. Okay, let's turn on automatic, right? Like that seems like a reasonable way to go too.
Yeah, I like that. So then if you go back to the PR,
Yeah.
I have basically just some comments as to what happened there and with some links to some test logs. So whenever anybody has a chance to look at that and leave any comments, that would be fantastic.
Okay, and then that'll require a token which can be used to do a publish, right?
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'll probably need to get the same people involved.
Yeah, I just can't remember. I think we'll just have to figure out, do we already publish NPM things? If so, that makes it easier and that we could just probably use the same token. And then go from there.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, these are fun. I'm sure you had fun testing it because it's sort of like I know we're doing that in sort of in a different project, and it's kind of like, okay, commit and run, commit and run.
Yep. But yeah, so that's all that I have on this one.
Okay. Okay, and then add on. Okay, so these are just the ongoing, keeping those up to date in terms of issues.
I wanted to talk about failures with that. Yep, that one.
This one? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think Vladimir made a PR to fix this. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I'd gone to the CI to look to see if I could see that it was fixed, but unfortunately there was some problems with build. Was not being green. I think the answer was it was fixed, but
Okay.
like here I can see this is last failure, last success. I'm not sure this goes to like, okay, yeah. So it looks like we're being quite green. And that was like, so that's obviously not VS 22. So yeah, it looks to me like we can declare that fixed. So I'll close that log.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for fixing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, like next time we see any kind of Visual Studio issue, yeah, build, just let me know.
Yeah.
Since I'm using it
Yeah.
every day, I must be able to.
I sort of only look at those intermittently, and sometimes they are a little bit flaky, just in that, like, if there's any, we're basically also testing whether the nightly builds worked. Because, like, if the nightly build had a problem and there's no binary, then these tests fail. So, but it basically has helped us definitely catch things like this. Okay, so that one. Otherwise, I don't think there's any too much else to discuss, right? If not, I'll flip over to Node API. Sorry, no, to Node.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Can we go back to the issues list?
Yeah.
Because the object wrap has a memory leak bug. This is the one that brought us to discussion of the fact that we needed a runtime flag for the opt-out, which
Right.
I
Yep.
may bring up later. But I also wanted to sort of talk about how we would want to implement Node.js in Node add-on API. Because Gabe is working on that PR, which is really just a wrapper for the post finalizer. So it really doesn't take into consideration the use of the Node.js env type. So I was wondering, like, were we thinking that all of the finalizer callbacks would take a different parameter based off of, if you're opting in or whatnot, or do we want to add a different method, or what are we sort of thinking here?
How many methods are there? Like,
Well, it's not only just the methods, there's also like um when like you're creating new objects or something, like when you create a new external, you pass in a finalizer as a parameter. So that's not necessarily just a object method. That's also like an instance method. So I'm not exactly sure how many there are.
and do those ones need to, like, if you,
But well, I imagine like this same discussion came up when we were talking of the underlying Node API functionality, where, instead of adding a new method for add finalizer v2 or Node API add finalizer, that takes the Node.js env, we just change that parameter in the same instance with, the other, like the external new and whatnot.
I think for Node add-on API, I think what we can do, and this is simplistic because I haven't looked at the code closely. We can probably have like a, what is that called? Like an overload that accepts like a Node.js finalizer. So you can pass in a lambda, and if the lambda happens to have like a Node.js env as its first parameter, then you're really calling the overload that accepts like a Node.js finalizer. And otherwise, you're calling the other overload, and the implementation of the Node.js overload is to just, add finalizer, and the implementation of the regular overload is to post finalizer.
Okay.
And then run it. That's simplistic. I'm not 100% sure we can do that, but I think we can do that. I suspect that unfortunately there are cases where we handle the finalization entirely. Like I'm thinking object wrap, and so the destructor for the class, for the subclass, is really the finalizer, right? And
Right.
so how do we inform? We may need to create another class that you can derive from, which has like no GC object wrap or something like that. Call it like object wrap no GC or something like that, wherein it is documented that the destructor must not make calls into JavaScript. I think, and then people will just have to like search and replace object wrap with object wrap no GC if it affects them, or if they want to have the synchronous finalization behavior. That's the only way I can think of it for cases where we handle the attaching of the finalizer internally, and so people don't even have a chance to specify what kind.
Where do we define our like what finalizer looks like?
Oh, we have several. We have attached data. That's one thing that one mechanism we use. At finalizer, this is just exposing the core API, if I remember correctly.
I'm
But
more
we
like
have
if we want to create a finalizer, where is the code to do that?
Yeah, if you search for attached data,
yeah.
Okay.
that would probably be the best.
Okay, and I need to go back to INL probably.
Yeah, because it's in
Yeah.
the details class. Yeah,
Right,
this.
okay.
Yeah. And this finalizer that we pass in is a wrapper that we create.
Right.
Yeah, so
Which
this attached data is
are-
being used in a bunch of places,
Mhm.
sometimes with finalizers that we create. Yeah.
I'm just like, not without having looked at the code, I'm just wondering if like somewhere somebody says like, here's my code for the finalizer, right?
Mhm.
And that we just want like to be able to know, is it a no GC version or a GC version, right? And then we can, I think what Gabriel was kind of saying is if we know, if somebody says like, here's my finalizer and it happens to be a no GC one, then we know which one we should call. Like we know which of the two variants we should call, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think the type inference is going to end up specializing the one of the two templates depending on what was passed in, and then the implementations can differ.
Right.
Because like in this case though, we're like add data, we're creating our own finalizer, right? Like they're not
That's
passing us this.
that's at the attached data call site. So because I think by the time it gets here, I think we already have defined. Yeah, because we have the NAPI finalized, so it's already NA, and we have a default value for it, but not in every case do we pass the default. So you need to look for like where attached data gets called, because that's how it depends on things.
Okay, so let's. Oops. So like it's this
Yeah.
finalized data, right?
Right. So we create this finalized data object on 1635, which contains the callback to be called. And then this attached data actually calls the NAPI add finalizer using the wrapper that we create based off of this details finalized data wrapper instance.
So this object, so like this add finalizer, would it make sense for that just to have like an add finalizer no GC?
Well, that's not exactly what what Gabe would be suggesting. Gabe would be suggesting to have the finalizer callback, the finalizer type here,
Oh, this
except
one, yeah, okay, right.
yeah, to accept either a GC or to accept either type and then end up calling the user provided callback of either type.
You're right. That makes sense. Yeah. Like, so basically we'd have a finalizer and then a finalizer no GC, right?
Yeah, I
It,
think so.
yeah,
It's tricky because we are intentionally being generic here, right? So this finalized callback, we don't actually specify different implementations here. Right now, we just assume that it's a regular finalized callback, but we're gonna have to start specifying.
right.
So yeah,
Which is
it's
going to be tricky because, you know, right now it's anything that is callable, whether it's like a lambda or a static, you know, a
yeah.
static function or whatever. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to do that. I worked a little bit on this with the thread safe function implementation, so I think it should be possible as well, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But then, so for the NoGC callback that gets called, how do we want to handle having the concept of a const node add-on API env? You know, like I think
That's
before we did have some conversations, like maybe a year or 2 years ago, about const versus non-const methods. Um, and
so
yeah.
the the method getting passed in, right? We have
Mhm.
let's assume that we are able to recognize that that this is a no-GC method getting passed in, right?
Yep.
So then that should line up perfectly with the core API. So a no-GC env comes in and we pass it into the method that accepts a no-GC env.
Yeah.
We know that because it went through the right specialization.
Right, but then this callback would end up having the C type of the NoGC env. How do we want
Right.
to, if at all, how do we want
Okay.
to
Yeah.
wrap this into Node add-on API?
Yeah.
You know,
We we
maybe,
we we may need the equivalent no-GC env exposed, which is the same as env, but with some limitations. Yeah, that's true. So because right now env and NAPI env are interoperable. In fact, I think they will automatically cast. It'll
yep,
automatically cast down. I don't know about up, but down definitely. Uh, and so yeah, we may need to create another class, but then we need to see. Yeah, it would have to be a different class, and then that class would not have some of the stuff that like we have like env null or something like that, right? Like to create like a null value. Like the no GCM wouldn't have such methods, such instance methods, for to create null, to create undefined, that kind of stuff. It would just not have them. And what it has and what it doesn't have, we're gonna have to decide as we go along.
right. Okay. All right. So that's okay. I mean, what about using, just as another approach, using the const version of the existing env class and then modifying the methods that can be used or not by signifying them as const methods?
So how would you disallow a call to like undefined, for example, to create an undefined value if the env is const?
The undefined method would not be const. So that if you have a const
Oh,
env and you try to call undefined, which is non-const, you would get a compilation error.
oh,
And then
okay.
like and then likewise with places where we have to pass an environment, you can either pass a const env if it allows no GC, or a regular env if it does allow JavaScript. Would that be something that could work?
I'm
Yeah, I
not a
remember
compiler, but
Yeah,
we had a discussion some times ago. Remember, like about
yeah,
making all this actually const because we're doing these wrappers, not And I don't remember all arguments, but I think in the end we decide like all our methods should be kind of const, right? We changed it already. Like if you look at most of our signatures right as right now the const, it'll be big breaking change if we can change this policy.
Did we, so for example, object get, is that object has, yeah, that's const, and we would not want to be able to call that. Okay,
Well,
so
wait,
that,
but that's object though. That's see, another wrinkle is the fact that we have an environment embedded in like the object type, right? It's in there. You don't have to pass an environment in order to get a property, right? So
oh yes, that's right.
so if you store your object in like a persistent and you pass it to a node.js finalizer, it already has an environment inside. So would you be able to call that? That's kind of a problem.
Technically speaking, we should start from the end. Like what exactly we want to achieve, right? We want to say like certain finalizer methods, they're callable under some conditions and not callable other conditions, right? Like we pretty much.
Right.
So I would rather kind of see through like how we can make some magic around callbacks to start with. Maybe we don't need to have environment. What I'm trying to say, like we probably should try it and see how it works. But in the end, to see, maybe we don't need separation between two environments. We don't need to create another environment class at all.
Okay. And
Right, like that callback like that finalizer callback gets a certain set of parameters, right?
Right.
yes.
There can be different ways we can achieve like so often one kind of method you look inside of standard C++ library, people sometimes use a special additional kind of fake tag parameter, for example. So if people provide some callback and there is special tag that which say like I'm node.js, so we can separate it from another finalizer.
Right. So this is our parameters, right?
Right.
But so like, and so today we have like an API node.js env, right? Do we?
Yep.
The question is like, can we pass the NAPI env as an API node.js env?
No.
No,
At
okay.
the
It's
end,
really
non-constant. But yeah.
or I guess actually, but even this like this like because we want to have an M, but then when we pass that M, it's basically just when we call the finalizer, or not, I guess not even when we call the finalizer, but when we compile the finalizer, we want it to be as if this is a node.js env, right? And at runtime, we don't care what we're passing it.
Well, we're gonna have to have two separate, well, rather two separate implementations of this default finalizer.
Right. We will have like a node.js finalizer, right?
Yeah, right.
For what it's worth, I have some of this in my PR because I had to have two separate implementations of the finalizer in there. But the second one is just hard coded to call post finalizer and call the whatever was passed in. So yeah, that's there, but yeah, whether we can be smarter about that, like we can move that one further along, I think, and have some of this stuff solved,
Right.
but not all of it.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering, is our challenge that we're discussing that we can have a default like a node.js finalizer, or like we have a signature basically, which instead of NAPI-M is NAPI node.js, right? And that will make sure that those finalizers provided to us will fail to compile if people are trying to do the wrong thing. Like if they told us it's a node.js one and it really is. And is our challenge that we've just got an NAPI-M and like how do we convert that into something that would be accepted as a NAPI node.js?
Um, n-
It, there's also the converse, right? We receive an OGCN from core in the Node.js finalizer, but all our Node add-on API methods and functions and whatnot, they all accept an NAPI env. So we need to build it up from a data structure that core gives us to one that we have in Node add-on API. And currently the only one we have is a regular env that can do everything. So that's another sort of flow of information that we need to worry about.
But does that, like, there's the runtime side where, like, I think this is meant to be like compile time checking, right? So like, if our regular env could hold a no GCM or a regular env.
Okay, and maybe render it as like an internal flag, like inside the C++ class, and then we can catch ourselves calling. Yeah, okay, that's not bad because we can catch ourselves calling an API that accepts a regular env, and if the flag inside the C++ env is, I don't know, one of the two values, then we're like, what, we fail at runtime?
Well, I
I'm not
think, but at
sure.
runtime, the only thing we have to do is call the 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 thing that it allows JavaScript or doesn't allow JavaScript, right? Like, I think at runtime, that's the only decision we need to make is like, we've been given a finalizer, and it's either a no G, like a callback, and it's either a no GC callback or it's a GC callback. And so when we call that, we just need to say, well, am I going to call it this way or am I going to call it that way, right?
Ideally, we wouldn't make any of these decisions at runtime because the code paths establish that all code paths that are correct and that compile correctly, that are established at compile time, um, will be such that this check would be unnecessary.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself having to make these decisions, do I call this core API or not? If you make these decisions at runtime, then in a way the game is lost because that code path may never get executed except when the server has been running for like 500 hours. And now that code path gets called and the server crashes. And it worked fine for 500 hours and then it dies because this call was made at runtime and this decision was made at runtime. So ideally, only correct call paths would get compiled. And then there is no decision to be made at runtime. We have no flags to check and no branches to do at runtime.
Yeah, okay. So I could see that, like, the first sort of safety belt could just be, you've told us, is this a no GC or not, right? In which case we will, if you tell us this, like, we'll validate that the calls you've made match that, right? Because like that'll automatically, the no GC type will enforce that. And if you said if you said like, I don't call any GC, I'm not going to call any GC things, and you do, it'll fail to compile. Right? If you told us the opposite, like, no, this could run JavaScript, then, and I'm just trying to think, like, that will run the safe mode, which will always run. So I think that's safe though, right? Like, you can't have made a mistake.
Yes, if you tell us this thing can run JavaScript, then we can blindly accept that because the ultimate arbiter is core, and it's going to say check GC access, false, goodbye, crashes the process. So we don't have to make that decision again because it's already made in core, right?
But the compile will already have validated that, right? Like, I guess I'm
Yes,
like
exactly.
trying to understand what we're not getting. Like, if we have the code that says, like, if they created a no GC finalizer, then the compile will be such that they can't, at compile time, they can't call anything that we think uses the GC. And if they've told us, they haven't told us that it's a no GC finalizer, then we run it with the safe one, in which case it's good, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see. So if it's not explicitly labeled as no GC at compile time, then we defer with post finalizer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In which case, like, they decide what they think, and actually the compile time checks should make sure they did it right.
Yep.
And then
Yes, that's a good point. Like, we don't want to get into situations where it's like, okay, so I switched to this new version that supports Node.js, and yet I still have this memory leak. Why? You know, uh, and and finding out that it's because you didn't label your thing as Node.js should be easy. It should not be difficult.
And the
Right? Because
easiest way, really, I think the easiest way would be, well, no, never mind. I was saying if you had a different method, but that doesn't take into consideration the cases where you have a finalizer as a parameter. Hmm. I mean, would a compile time? No. Mm-mm.
But I think because I might be missing something here, but like if our finalizer gets a nappy underscore no GC, like all of the other code that we have, in theory, evaporates into like actual calls to the core things. And if it's passing those in and it's, we're already catching any calls which could run JavaScript, right? So that should fail to compile.
Yeah, so there's only like a couple of Node APIs that you can use that accept an env.
Right.
Or that accept a Node.js env, which is like get version or add async cleanup hook
Yeah.
or the thread safe unref. So what I would say is that maybe it does make sense to have a different class um, that has those methods on it, and then that you can use. So not this undefined, but get version or whatever. And then on um and I guess it would maybe have to be a subchild, have to be a child of env. Yeah, that
But
makes
why do
sense.
I'm still
So what I would think is that the things that you can use on Node.js, which
right.
is like Git version, would go into the Node.js, or would go into the, oh, wait, no,
Because like these
Yeah.
finalizers take the native thing, right?
Right, but we would want to wrap it in some sort of, if we do, we would want to wrap it in some sort of Node add-on API, C++.
I'm just trying to understand why.
So for example, you can use env dot. Do we have something inside of env right now that for example, if you needed to get the node version, I just have that as my one example because I remember seeing that on the um there's also get last error info that takes the Node.js env cleanup hooks.
Right. So, but like if you, so I'm just thinking you've got this NAPM. If you want to use, you can either use it directly to make core calls, which the right thing
Mhm.
should happen if it's no GC, but you can also put it into like some Node add-on API, the existing things. You could put it into an
No,
existing M.
you could not because it's const, and I don't think you can typecast the const version into, you cannot put a, well, oh wait,
hold on a second.
yeah.
My original motivation for making it const is because C doesn't have type inheritance, right? C doesn't have
Mhm.
inheritance. And so if I remember correctly, the idea was that Node.js is the superclass and the regular env is the subclass because regular env has more capabilities than
Right,
Node.js env, right? And so if a function requests an env, then you cannot pass in a Node.js env because you cannot be certain that it is
right.
of type env. You can only be certain that it's of type Node.js env. And so the only way to render that in C is by making env const. But in C++, we have actual real inheritance and polymorphism, not like in C, right?
Right.
And so we could make node.gc the base class,
Okay.
and in the next version of Node add-on API, an API env derives from Node API node.gc env.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then we will have something that reflects the core API, right? I'm not sure that there are no wrinkles with this, mind you, but you know, uh, it should be able to map cleanly-ish to the core API, hopefully.
Right. Okay.
Notice all those qualifiers there.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Right.
Yeah.
Because really we just want something where the env we store in the C++ env can either be a node.gc one or a regular one, right?
And we can do that by polymorphism on the class. Yes.
Well, actually, I'm not 100% sure, because if we change the signature of methods to say, this used to take an env, but now it takes a node.gc env, wait, then that should work because it's a subclass. Okay, good. Yes, because we get polymorphism, because people have it saying this is an env, and they're passing it in as an env, which works as a node.gc env. So I think we're good by way of that. Whereas the opposite will break, which is exactly what we intend.
So we wanted the add finalizer to sort of be smart enough to know whether you're getting a node.gc or a regular env and call the callback appropriately. That was sort of step one. And then step two is to have the proper subclassing of the node.gc env and
there may be a problem. Having two overloads, one that accepts the superclass and one that accepts the subclass. I think the compiler may complain about that because it is ambiguous in some cases, right? So I think we're just going to have to, do the exercise and see where the compiler trips us up, because I'm pretty sure that there's ambiguity there if they are related like that.
I guess I'm still missing something. Like if our existing env, like if we can't have like a single thing that will hold, like at the C level will hold, or even at the C++ level, that'll hold like a pointer to a node GCM and a GCM, right? Not saying this is the way we should do it or anything, but like I could imagine we could say inside of our existing env, we're going to have two things. One is a node GCM, one is an env. And then all of our code that actually gets the env would pass one or the other. Now, I guess that, yeah, no, then everything that expects one of the two types. So we need those two types to be like interchangeable.
I think we can do it with template programming.
Yeah, okay.
I think we can. I think like I'm picturing what Gabe is saying. I just don't know if it's possible or how to do it, but that's what the internet and searching is for.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't have a built-in C++ compiler?
Okay. Well, I think that's all that I wanted to discuss on this issue, unless anybody else has anything else they want to talk about.
Sounds like you're looking at it, and we'll probably come back with something.
Yeah.
So, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Any other of these issues before we pop over to core?
I just pushed my PR to remove 18 from the matrix, but of course we're not going to merge that. I just removed it so I can run the tests on my PR, and some things that shouldn't be failing are failing. So I'm going to have to take a look at that. Because I also updated this matrix, so the only one that we're still missing is 18. All the others they've been released. So I'm going to have to see well, okay, now that you mention it, probably I have to see what version it's pulling for some of the tests that shouldn't be failing. Because like there's even some stable ones, like V20 stable, I think is failing. And so I'll have to double check. And there's some Windows ones that are failing at the bottom. So yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at this and get these up to green. The ones that I know should be green.
Okay. Any others before I flip over? Okay, this is one that Chinzong asked that we take a look at. I think he suggested that we add this set name property.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one we can basically use the modification of the name to help us here, where we add one which isn't deprecated that got the additional parameters.
Oh, actually, that's a good point. Okay, I kind of made a duplicate comment there. I'm gonna edit that.
Okay, so people can take a look and suggest in, that would be good.
I look at this PR, I have a mixed feeling about it.
Okay, yeah.
We currently, this set named property and stuff, it's more like convenience methods, and
Right.
currently just accept string. And the main reason for the change that some property names may have this zero symbol inside. But thankfully today we can, there is very simple workaround. People just simply can create first like a string, or better yet, create maybe even a kind of specialized string which can be used as a property name. So technically speaking, developers already can address this issue using existing APIs.
That's fair. Yeah, I was thinking that too. But I don't know. It was just kind of further along, and I figured it's probably okay. But I kind of sympathize with Vladimir. Like this is not something you cannot do if this API were not available. That you simply like an API creates string UTF-8 or UTF whatever or Latin one or whatever the third one is, and then an API set property instead of set named property. So an API set named property is already a convenience function, right? Because it does two things for you. It creates the string and then it sets the property. But
Right.
you can create the string yourself, and the create string function already accepts a length, meaning it'll gobble up zeros and whatnot, and not treat them as separators or terminators.
Yeah, better yet, we have this set create a kind of property key, right? Like which actually much more efficient. So technically, this pattern username property is kind of a convenience method, but it's not the most efficient one. So we can, if we produce new one, which I don't know, like it becomes less convenient to use, and it's not necessarily kind of best recommended way to go.
Yeah.
So is there a like, because the person, one of the people's complaint on the related issue was like, yeah, I could do that, but it's going to take me 2 calls. If the answer is, well, but wait a sec, there's this other method which will let you do it even, with 1 call and it's even faster, then
that's the
that
thing.
seems like a good thing to point out. Like, just go use this other thing and there's no change needed, right?
I don't think it's such a big barrier calling. Correct me if I'm wrong. The biggest, the sort of the fattest code in Node API is going from V8, translating arguments to an API, the callback info, right? And then calling the user method. But the user method calling back into the API is not very inefficient. So if you make 1 call or if you make 2 calls, it's the difference is very, very little. I mean, it's just like setting up another call stack, like it's on like the assembly level of difference. So I don't think it's that super bad to make 2 calls instead of 1 in this case. And as Vladimir pointed out, if you're doing properties, property keys specifically, you should really use the API for property keys. And so we shouldn't make it, we shouldn't, I think in some way this encourages people to use the string creation and generic property name in API instead of the dedicated property name API, which is the key, which would make things more efficient. So, you know, we shouldn't encourage that. I think that's an argument that can be made.
I think that's a good suggestion to make. Like if it's, you know, the suggestion is there's a better way to do it that we should be used in this case anyway, and therefore, you know, let's not.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, I haven't checked the property key creation API that we have. Does that one support a length? Because if
Yes.
it doesn't, then maybe that's the one we should be extending, not the one that creates like an inefficient property key.
Yeah, this property key supports length. The only kind of limitation right now, I think it's implemented by the same developer. We only have probably only supporting UTF-8 or UTF-16. We need to add overload for UTF-8 and stuff like. So technically, I would rather kind of have more overloads for create property key for
Oh,
different string encodings rather than having.
oh, right. Wait, isn't that like a V8 limitation though? That
No,
the property keys cannot be of that third kind. They can only be of two different kinds, whereas strings can be of three different kinds.
no. Like technically, nobody stops us to create. Like we currently we have then we create in a string. We have three different overloads. Like for Latin 1, we have overload to UTF-8 and UTF-16. So when this developer was actually kind of working with property key stuff, I suggested we have this 4 different overloads, but he implemented only one, or they implemented only one. So technically, we need to, I would rather see like with other kind of 3 overloads to be added. Like so technically, we should have a property key for UTF-8, property key for Latin 1, and one more which would actually just create property key from an API value. Because technically, property key can be created from symbol as well, right? Or
Yes.
can be some other kind of string which already been converted to an API value. So technically speaking, ideally we should have 4 different property key kind of overloads.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. So then we will win in 2 different ways. We're going to have support for length, and we're going to have efficient property keys because we are telling the engine this is a property key, not just a regular string.
Right.
So yeah, I think we should pivot or attempt to convince the author to pivot the PR towards creating these APIs, because the value of having the convenience is much less than the value of having efficient properties at runtime.
Right.
Okay, well, if one or both of you want to comment in there with those suggestions, that would be good.
Okay, I'll comment.
Technically speaking, now we support in Node API ref for strings. So people can create these keys, keep them inside of references and API refs, keep them long-term, right? Somewhere in some dictionary or whatnot, and then kind of retrieve this property key, and will be kind of much more efficient in my opinion in many cases.
Yep. I agree. The convenience of writing the code is, yes, it increases the burden on developers, but ultimately it is runtime performance that really matters, right? So people can define a macro or define a helper function or something if they absolutely want that kind of convenience.
Right.
And in fact, if they do that, they'll even get the runtime performance to boot. So, because they can define the helper function the right way, which is to create property keys.
Right.
Okay, I'll comment to that. I should I make it? Oh, I think Lucas already made a change requested, but for different reasons. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just put a change requested on this.
Sure. So I think this one's related. This one, you I think we've discussed. I don't know if there's anything more you want to discuss on that one.
No, I just got to get in there and start working on it and see if there are any unexpected wrinkles for that versioning support runtime.
Okay, we haven't really seen anything new on this one for a little while, so are we comfortable closing? Well,
I think
actually,
so.
might be good to, I don't know. We leave this open until we've got the node add-on API fixed.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I guess any others that we should chat about before we close out?
Can I just ask you advice about like my PR 52646? 52646.
I'm just gonna 646.
Right. So technically, it's failing CI. I just discovered what I should do. I just want kind of chat with you guys. Yeah,
Sure.
my last comment over there, because it's failing kind of CI for Windows build, and what I found that I essentially seems like I need to split my PR in several parts. Because first of all, once must build this embed test XZ, then I need to change. It seems like I need to change Node.js build, because if you look, if you click on this link, I'll show that what they're doing there. So one of the kind of scripts Jenkins run, like you see, they're creating this on line 18. They're creating this set of binary files, and these binary files being copied to test 18 there. And this line right now has CC test, for example, but it does not have 18 like set binary files. Okay.
Sorry, I'm line 18, you said?
18, yes, 18.
Yeah, so this one right here?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So what I understand that this how the whole this build CI build works, like we first of all building some on one machine, we building a node code, right, and some other
Correct.
executable.
Yes. Yeah.
Then
Windows
we
is spanned. Yeah.
right, and here we kind of only kind of package kind of selected executables, like for example cc test exe being packaged into Turbo, right?
Right.
And then on test machine, like where we're running test, we unpackage it and only run against executable using executable which inside of this Turbo.
Yep.
And since I want to run this test for embed test, it's not being packaged and the test is actually failing. So,
but I guess I don't understand why that is, because like when you run a PR, it should both first build it and put the resources into like a shared place, and then later run the set of tests.
but this script selects what kind of collect from this initial build machine. And because I want to run this instead against embed test executable, it's not being packaged here, and test fails because executable is not found.
But they're PR to two different things. I see. Right. You need to. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. So you need to first PR into. Yeah. I know what you're now saying. You need to have something be available, and then you can change the build script to use it. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So I would like add the new binary in, I guess, and then yeah, that I understand where you're at.
So I need to split up my initial PR into two parts. One of them will be just creating this executable, but will not run the test.
Yep.
I need to create PR inside of this build node.js build.
Yep.
We can now package with newly built executable, and then I will create another PR to run actual test.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Okay, and then I do it for libnode, because this is one of my kind of one of the steps for the libnode. I'll need to create additional changes, additional PRs, which will be very similar.
Okay.
I'll need to first start to build additional test executables and then add them here, right?
Is there a dependency? It sounds
I'm
like
gonna
maybe
have to drop
you should.
off.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
just going to make one of.
Oh,
I'll make Vladimir the host and you can continue chatting. Sorry.
I was just thinking, Vladimir, you should probably land a PR that creates these binaries first, right? Because then they get created, they are wasted essentially because they're not copied. But if you land the PR that copies them first, then that may fail because the file is not found, right?
Yeah, that's what I need to kind of stage. I need to split up my initial PR
Yeah,
and
yeah,
keep
yeah.
like first this PR will then land will just create executable, but will not run this executable.
Yeah, and then so you land a PR that creates the executable, you land a PR that copies the executable, and then you land a PR that runs the executable. Yeah, okay, cool.
And I'll need to do similar stuff for libnode because
Right.
this PR for libnode adds 2 additional executables, and we'll need to do the same.
All right, cool.
Oh, thank you. But now I don't know how to finish it.
Well, I think if we all leave, then it's the ref count will drop to 0. All right.
I just need to say end, I guess, right?
Yeah, you
That's
should have
right.
an end meeting button.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you later.
See you
All right.
guys.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Yeah, you too.